Hello,
Hi.
Queen. Wow, what a journey. I'm so excited. I'm about to get tears in my eyes already. Wow. This has just been an amazing journey in the making, and I want to welcome every single one of you and my queen host to the first episode of CastABLE, the podcast. And I'm truly honored to be on this journey with you, where
Thank you
we
for asking me. I know we were just talking about uh, this being your brainchild, and you were so passionate about it when you called me that I couldn't just say, "Oh yeah, sure, do this, and go." And you were so generous to share the space um, with myself, and um, I'm just grateful for you.
and I
So
you.
yeah,
I
but before we get carried away, we should introduce people. You should introduce yourself.
well, I am Benai
And
Alicia
I'm
Boyd.
Kumi.
Yay! And welcome to the very first episode of the CastABLE podcast, where we focus on what we can do to abolish ableism in the entertainment industry.
And I know we're super excited about this journey. We're excited to really start talking about things that affect the disability community in all aspects of the entertainment industry, shedding light on microaggressions and ableism toward people with disabilities in the industry, and to destigmatize the harmful preconceived notions of the disability community.
And we're also open to answer any and all questions to those who might have about people with disabilities and how they can actively make the change in their areas of the entertainment industry. There are no stupid questions, there are no wrong questions, as long as we come together to educate and elevate
Mhm.
and try and make a change and make a difference. That's
Amen.
what this is about. You
Amen.
know, we want this to actually be a beautiful open conversation where people feel comfortable, people feel educated, people feel safe within wanting to become an ally, not knowing how to become an ally, people who are allies, people who do have disabilities, people, whether they be invisible or visible, where everyone is welcome. Everyone.
And that's why we love this space. So who the heck are we? Benay, I'm going to go ahead and let you introduce yourself and tell your story a little bit.
Okay. Well, my name is Benai Boyd, and I was born and raised in Los Angeles, California. I was an able bodied spirit for the first 42 years of my life. I was a singer, dancer, actress, producer, activist, and I've been blessed to grace stages all over the world, 15 countries to be precise. I was cast as a role in HBO's Big Little Lies, and I landed a national commercial and print campaign for the entire year of 2019. It had been a pretty incredible journey. In 2015, I was given an opportunity to create the first live adaptation of an award winning film and bring it from screen to stage. Throughout that time, I put my body through extreme trauma for the next 4 years and endured too much damage to my lumbar, sciatic, hamstring, knee, nerve, and foot, all the way down to my right leg. And as of December 18th, I could no longer continue performing in such a high intense show. At the end of 2019, while still working and performing, even though my body was not keeping up the way it used to, I I lost my sense of self and I went into the deepest, darkest depths of depression, contemplating suicide as my last resort. I felt it was interesting because I felt like I'd failed. And then the next 2 years, I spent most of my time in surgeries, physical therapy, in bed, all while in the throes of a global pandemic. And I decided that I needed something to help me heal from all the pain I was experiencing and to take my mind as far away as I could. So I did the complete opposite and started a nonprofit with my husband, feeding people experiencing homelessness. But all of it really consumed me. And I think there was a point where I felt like my life was over just because of the fact that I became disabled. So why not concentrate on something completely opposite to my passion and my first love? But as I started healing and coming to that place of acceptance, I realized that it was a journey that most people, that everyone actually given this path has to take. And as I worked through the trauma and came into a place of acceptance, I started to realize that wait a minute, I'm disabled. I'm not dead. And as I started to rebuild my life and advocate for myself, I continued to perform and exercise my craft. I traveled to New York City multiple times, and I reached out to Kumi actually, and she really truly helped me step into the first experience as a truly disabled person continuing their life. And I just started to realize how magnificent the disabled community was, how resilient and strong they are. I mean, me only just becoming disabled a few years ago, I marveled at how loving and welcoming the community was. And it was interesting because I was ashamed and they weren't. I was embarrassed and they're all prideful. I hid in my room. They do not. As I became more accepting of my new chapter, I began to realize that this was my opportunity to speak. And all I had to do was open my mouth. I will say that I do continue to work and perform, but now I am a part of a beautiful community that deserves space on stages and screens. And while I continue to advocate for myself and others in the entertainment industry, I'm here to say that I'm not done yet. I just have to do it a little differently. So that's a little bit about me. What about you, Kumi?
Oh my gosh, I love that. Your story is beautiful, and I just admire your strength. But I was born with a disability called arthrogryposis. I use a wheelchair for 100% of my mobility needs. I have limited range of motion in all four of my limbs, which means that I need help with um, what we call daily living skills. So like showering, dressing, eating, hygiene, all of it. Um, I oftentimes say that I feel sort of lucky because this life is all that I've ever known. Um, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't hard either, you know. Um, Growing up, I had this huge passion for performing, and I always knew in the back of my head that I wanted to be a singer, a performer, an actress. And for the longest time, I think for the first like 20 years of my life, especially as I aged and got closer to like, you know, going to college and figuring out what the heck I was going to do with my life, I chose something safe. I was going to go into education because there were no people that looked like me in anywhere in media. Um, there were people that were similar, but people in wheelchairs with disabilities like mine in the media to me just did not exist. I didn't see them. Um, but then finally one day I was like, I'm so miserable. I was going to school for something that I was not passionate in, and I I was just skating by um, and being very passive. Then I think, you know, it wasn't until 2000 I moved out toward the LA area with my aunt and her family, and I think that's when I really was like, you know what, screw this. I'm just gonna go in. I'm just gonna audition for everything and hope for the best. And if anything, these auditions will be experience for me because I'd never auditioned for anything professional in my life. And you know, it was crazy because in 2002, you know, I was cast in a theme park show that was a very big deal, and I became the first person in a wheelchair to be on any, you know, theme park stage in the world for this particular company. And you know, it was a learning experience. It was kind of like a relationship, right? Like the company had never um, dealt with an employee, specifically a performer with a disability, and there was a lot of learning about each other. Had to learn about the company, and the company had to learn about me. And I spent 13 years in that show. I, you know, dedicated a very huge chunk of my life to that show. And, you know, I found that aging with a disability, especially in the entertainment industry, was not always kind. Um, and that there still were not people like me um, in in mainstream media. And if there were people like me, they weren't real. Like they were, you know, able-bodied people playing people with disabilities. Um, and that to me was a little offensive. You know, I knew I wasn't the only one, but I was really waiting for somebody else to join me. And it's oftentimes very lonely being the only one in the circle with a disability. But you know, when Benai, when you called and invited me to your space to share my experience and to talk openly about the ableist culture in the entertainment industry, I was game. You know, I'd done other things. I'd done, you know, TV shows, another movie, and other live performances, but I really felt that your mission and goal of this podcast really aligned with my values, not just for me, but for our community. And I'm really happy to be here. I'm excited for the people that we're going to learn about, the people that we're going to talk about, and I'm really excited to continue sharing um, our journeys so that the entertainment industry um, will start to make that equitable change for people like us.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. It's glorious. It's gorgeous. It's courageous. It's inspiring. You know, as a newly disabled person, it's like every day is a new chapter, and you have to kind of really work through that chapter, and to see you already doing it and succeeding and shining and just being the bright, magnificent, brilliant star that you are, it just gives inspiration. And so, you know, one of the biggest things that I started to realize, even just in my bedridden days and just scrolling, is the journeys that people, whether they are born disabled or they become disabled later on in life,
Mm-hmm.
everybody kind of has to unpack and really do the most, what is the word that I'm trying to, courageous thing, and really sit down with themselves and analyze and assess, and really, it's like the testament of your strength. And for people who have walked this walk or experienced these experiences before us, to have you as a leader, as a mentor, it's it gives me hope. And I hope that this podcast gives other people hope, as well as, you know, again, educates and allows people to feel comfortable with people like us.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just want to like ask you what are some things that you've noticed about being in this industry um that are different now that you are a person with a disability? What's changed for you? And what are the pain points?
You know, it's interesting because I was extremely successful as an able-bodied performer, even as a woman of color, as a woman. You know, yes, there were a few shows or readings that I was cast as the hashtag equity ethnic, and it was because I was just dark enough. But I was being called in on a regular basis and constantly working, sometimes doing 2, 3 shows at a time. And then as soon as I became disabled, and I will say a little bit after the pandemic doom had dissipated, that's when the phone stopped ringing.
Mhm.
I was not seen as someone who could deliver any longer. And maybe it was even, they thought that I was broken. And those are my own assumptions. You know, not anyone ever really truly said that to me, but it was fascinating that the phone was constantly ringing in the beginning. And now, as I have become open about the fact that I have a disability, the phone has stopped. Um, and I will say, yes, in a way, I was angry at first. And how dare an industry that I sacrificed my body throw me out? And but then again, as I started to process and come into an acceptance, it was like, I may walk a little differently, but I'm not dead, and my voice still works and my body still functions, and maybe not in the way society accepts, but I'm still here and I still have value. And that was one of the really painful points for me, is that when I was fully functioning and fully able, I had value and I had respect. Whereas when I became disabled, in a society that now already doesn't accept people with disabilities, invisible or visible, I was I was seen as someone who didn't have value. And I will say that there are a few, you know, projects that I'm a part of that embrace my disability, and I truly am grateful and thankful for them for that. But it's just been it's like when you're in an industry that already is a 95% rejection rate, to then add this on top of it and get even rejected more, it's debilitating. It's soul crushing. And the fascinating part about it is I feel like myself most of the time, at all times, you know, sitting down, laying down, eating, talking, I feel like me. Like nothing has changed. The only time things change is when I have to like get up to walk or navigate around in this like built society. And when I have to stand up and walk, I have to move my body like it's like a whole like fight or flight scenario. And my question that always keeps running through my head is why am I and people like me not enough just because of one aspect of our life that functions differently? I just don't understand it. And the polarity of it was, you know, one of the reasons why I just became so depressed. And I think that was probably the biggest pain for me. Like I was not worthy enough because I'm a little different now. I think that was the biggest. You know, we can get into society and the difficulties later, but I would just definitely say that that was the biggest slap in the face for me.
Yeah. And it's hurtful to hear you go through that experience because like you said, like we devote our bodies to this industry. I don't think people realize how physical um the life of a performer is, how much juggling we have to do to make ends meet, um, whether those ends are other work to put, you know, roofs over our head and foods on our table, or, you know, being a mother. Like, I think it's crazy how people don't think about the intersectionality of not only a performer's life, but performers with disabilities or people with disabilities, period. You know, people with disabilities exist in every single corner of of the communities that make up um, where we live and the communities that we work in. And you know, people with disabilities are parents. We're partners. We're Black. We're Asian. We're gay. We're trans. We're straight. We're the list goes on and on, and we're non-binary. The list really does go on. And that's another thing too that's almost kind of hurtful is that when I think about um creators of, you know, shows or any type of show, they're creating these real life scenarios, but they're not including people with disabilities, and people with disabilities are 100% woven into the makeup of everyday life since the beginning of time. We were institutionalized, we were sterilized so that our community wouldn't grow bigger. But the fact of the matter is that the disability community will continue to grow hour by hour as people not only are born and not only as we age, but when people get into accidents or when people you know, unfortunately become ill. And it's just so fascinating that one of the largest minority group um, is still treated like second class citizens, like we're relegated to the sidelines. Um, and that's crazy, you know, because you know, I work in my everyday life. I am a city employee, so I uh, you know, work in a lot of spaces throughout the community in the city that I live in, and it's so fascinating to see buildings continuing to be built that aren't universally accessible, um, programs and services that aren't accessible. And it's so exhausting, like trying to be the change. But I think now I'm 43, and I think it's just something that's a part of my DNA.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I know you talked about fight or flight. Um, and I'm consistently in the fight mode, which is exhausting. And that's what the patriarchy wants. They want you to be tired. They want you to be so tired that you'll quit. But we ain't gonna quit.
Not when
So
there's a fire in
yeah,
you.
no. And it's so it speaks volumes as to why this, what you're doing, what we're doing together, why it's important. It's because every child deserves to see themselves in things that they watch and see. Representation matters. Representation motivates and it provides hope.
Yep.
And we're not doing a good job by not representing what real life looks like. And real life is us.
Exactly. I mean, I couldn't agree more. And I think there are so many. I'm always about now. I can't say before, but now I'm about coming to the table, having discussions, because I think that's where true change happens. And I think people want to change, and I think people want to learn, and I think people do want to be allies, but I think people are afraid because we are a society that operates on fear. And anything that is different, I mean, like you said, from the test of time, they have been, shoving, hiding, assassinating disabled people because they're of a difference, of one difference, and realistically one difference, you know what I mean? But we are definitely treated like second-class citizens because of only one aspect that is unlike others. But the even bigger picture is the intersectionality of it all is really, truly astounding because it's the same for every other demographic, like Black skin, disability, ability, transgender, LGBTQIA plus sexual preference. We can go Arab culture, Asian looks. You know what I mean? It's so similar because of one difference, even though we all have the same organs. We all bleed. We all have a heart. We all need oxygen, food, water to survive and live. And I think just us coming to the table to ask the questions, to give a space where we're not judging or canceling or being like, no, 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 to where we can just actually discuss and people feel comfortable, I think doors will start to open.
Yeah. I think, for people who aren't surrounded by people with disabilities or don't even know anybody with a disability in their life, I think the goal here is to really educate and welcome into our community of, people with it's such a beautifully diverse community, people with disabilities, and our allyship base. And we just really want to focus on educating and being welcoming to the community. That way people understand, especially for people with invisible disabilities. Like that's something that's really that's something that's like for the past couple of years has been on the forefront of my mind. Like, how do you exist in a society with a disability, but people don't see it? Like, I don't have to explain anything to anybody. I roll around these streets like, this is me. That's it. This is what you got, But how do you navigate a world that thinks that disability is something that you can see only?
Right.
And that is not even, completely welcoming or equitable for people whose disability that you can see.
Right.
Right. So I think that, especially in this industry that's so focused on the way that you look, and it's so crazy too, because there's also a hierarchy in the disability community. Like, are you too disabled? Do you look too disabled?
Right.
What makes society comfortable is being just disabled enough to not make anyone feel, oh, that's, but I'm excited, I think that's, what people can expect from us. And I think this is going to be a learning journey for us as well, which I'm super excited about.
Absolutely. I'm
Yeah.
so excited because I will
Yeah.
still stumble. I will still make mistakes. Do you know what I mean? I'm
We
still,
all
you
will.
know,
We
and
all
and
will.
and I will still say the wrong things, but that's why I want people to feel comfortable to come forward, because I'm going to even say the wrong things and I'm going to be educated. And I think the most important thing is, yes, we say abolishing ableism in the entertainment industry. And I think people think that abolish is a really strong word, or like we want to ban it. But in the Merriam-Webster dictionary, it says formally to put an end to something, system, practice, or institution, to officially end or stop something. And I love and respect every disabled activist and their fight and the way that they have and continue to advocate for us. But like I said, I want us to create a safe space where people can ask the hard questions and not be ridiculed, to be able to allow space for people to tell their stories, to tell their visible disabilities and invisible disabilities, where we validate everybody's experience, and to allow the space for people to understand without prejudice or labels, and where we can all come together and say there are no stupid questions, and I'm going to make mistakes and I'm going to say stupid things, and it's okay, because I want to learn. I want to start a dialogue on how we can all come together and discuss how we can create that safe space, and then hopefully the mindset will follow. And I truly believe the entertainment industry is a great place to start, since we're such an influential industry to begin with. Like you said, you know what I mean? Everything is pretty much what is seen on TV. It's in commercials, it's in TV shows, it's in everything. That is what is supposed to be replicated in real life, to even the points of social media and, you know, that whole genre that I don't really know much. My kids know more about it than I do. But what I don't want this space to become is that people misconstruing as a poor us scenario, because it's not.
Yeah.
It's not a poor us scenario. We don't want I don't want it. You don't want it. We don't want the poor us scenario. We want to, again, reiterate, like, the intersectionality between us all is so valid and so important that we can all relate if we're just given the opportunity to understand. Period.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's a lot of people in the industry that are doing work to abolish ableism. And we really we're really looking forward to highlighting those people and the work that they've done and how they've changed the industry, and talk about how, you know, how much further we have to go. So
I couldn't agree more.
No. And that's, you know, that's CastABLE, folks.
Yay!
Congratulations, Benai. It's so awesome to see you come to fruition. You worked so hard, and thank you so much for having me be on this wild ride with you. And we'll see you on the next episode, folks.
Absolutely. I wouldn't have another person take this journey with me. I adore you, Queen.
Let's go.
Yes, let's do this.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.